And on that note, hey, Derek.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
So you dealing with the snow okay today?
I'm dealing with it. Well, I don't know. We'll see when I go out to sweep off the satellite.
Well, we know Tim's not dealing with the snow too well.
No, and supposedly he doesn't have any food at home.
That's what I've been hearing.
He said something about he's eating a handful of chocolate chips and drinking a cup of coffee. He ate a can of beets yesterday, and that is it.
Well, he knew all week snow was coming, so you think he went up prepared for it. Do like everybody else. At least get you some bread and milk, right?
Bread and milk.
Yeah. Maybe he can make snow cream. If he had some milk, he can make some snow cream.
Well, yeah. I don't know if he's listening, but I'm sure he'll do a commentary over there.
I'm sure he is. I sent him a message this morning, and it said, "Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful, and so there's nowhere to go. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow." And I don't think he appreciated that too well. Yeah, I don't think Tim likes the snow too well, but I do. I love it, especially this kind of snow when the roads are not icy.
He said, "I'm sure I am."
There you go. But especially when the roads are not icy, when they're just wet, I like snow. But it may ice up tonight, though, is what we're seeing.
I'm looking out there now. The parking lot was clear earlier. It's not now.
Right.
So yeah, it's actually sticking on the parking lot.
I got an update from Robin Caldwell from the County Emergency Management Services, and said we've been upgraded to winter storm warning effective till Saturday, December 9th at 7. Accumulating snowfall of 2 to 5 inches throughout the day is expected, with an additional 2 inches tonight. And then it says it's going to goes on. I'm not going to read the whole email, but it says it's going to drop into the upper 20s tonight. Mm-hmm. So if it drops into the upper 20s with no wind, I'm sure that things will freeze up tonight. Mm-hmm. So be sure and be careful if you're out after dark today, not to be out on the roads and stuff, because it could turn into ice once the sun kind of goes down today and gets dark.
And there is no sun now.
Yeah, not right now there isn't.
So when the sun, yesterday it was dark at 5:30. I mean dark.
Right.
Because it was that cloudy then.
Yeah.
And so if you have to be out after 5 or so, you better be really careful because the temperature hasn't moved at all.
Right. No, it's been hanging right around 30 all day. Mm-hmm. I've noticed my car riding around today. It's been right on 30. It jump up 30, 31, and then back, or almost 32 one time, then back down to 30 again. So it's just kind of hanging right around that freezing mark all day.
Okay. And if you haven't gone to the grocery store, don't just do the bread and milk. Get you some eggs and some syrup, and then you can make French toast. Okay.
Yeah.
But also, don't forget the toilet paper.
Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah.
You know, Tim told me this morning, he said he thought that our dispatch director, Teresa Creasman, told him that he needed just to embrace, the weather and just kind of don't fight it, just to kind of embrace it. Well, anyway, after I was texting him this morning, he made the comment that I was driving him to drink today and made some comments about drinking, and so then he made a comment about embracing it. So I asked him, I said, "Are you embracing the snow or embracing the drinking?" That's what he did. But he said the snow, so hopefully he's not embracing the drinking. He's just embracing the snow. So, but no, I do like the snow, and I like the weather that we are having. Hopefully it won't get off too bad tonight. And like I say, if people just kind of stay in and don't get on the ice and stay off the back roads, especially because they don't get treated like the 4 lanes do. Mm-hmm. And just know that if you're out after dark, you may hit some icy spots, black ice especially. Mm-hmm. And roads might be fine, and then you might hit a spot and throw you off the road. So the best thing is just stay home if you can. If you got to go to the store, if you're eating beets and eating chocolate chips, go to the store before 5 o'clock today and get your stuff and get back home before the things get bad out there.
Well, now that we have a helicopter stationed down there, he might actually want somebody to airlift him some food.
He probably would.
Yeah.
He would probably take it. He does have a drone. He could fly that drone down here and we could hook food to it and he could fly it back, couldn't he?
Yeah, it couldn't be very heavy though.
No. We might put some potato chips or something.
No more canned beets.
There you go. But I did hear Chief Jacobs on this morning talking about Shop with the Cop. I do want to mention that again. That is coming up next weekend. It's always a big event. Clay County generally does their Shop with the Cop the same time we do. So there's usually a lot of law enforcement, several buses full of kids, and going down to Walmart And so if you're planning on shopping next Saturday, you can expect there to be hundreds of kids at Walmart next Saturday. So, but we always enjoy that. We enjoy doing that with the kids. And each law enforcement officer kind of takes a kid and goes shopping with them and buys them some Christmas presents and things of that nature. And it is just an exciting time. We love doing it every year. And I want to encourage everybody, if you hadn't give to Shop with the Cop. I was going to give my money this morning, put it in your bucket here. Everybody can hear that?
Yeah.
And put it in the bucket here. And I was expecting some chocolate chip cookies because you said down at over at the Red Brick Deli, you know, if you put your money in the bucket, you got a chocolate chip cookie with that.
Right.
So Donna Lynn didn't have any chocolate chip cookies, but she did give me a Little Debbie Christmas tree chocolate, and it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm always a sucker for sweets, especially Little Debbie's. And but I thought I was going to have to call Helen Long or somebody to bake me a cake, you know, if you didn't if you didn't have anything here to feed me. So, but I do have some sweets today. But Helen, if you do want to bake a cake, that'd be fine too. So Helen usually bakes me a cake every now and then and brings it to me, and she's a very good cook.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys just remember Shop with the Cop that's coming up next weekend. And the next biggest thing that's coming up is, you know, this is our Christmas season. And unfortunately, this past year, we've had, you know, or actually the past several years, but we've had tragic events with, especially in our churches, with church shootings and things of that nature. And that's one thing that when I was growing up and for years, even in law enforcement for years, I never really thought about having to take a gun to church or having security at church or anything like that, because even the worst person in the community still respected the church. And I can remember as a kid there being people in our community that were bad people that we were told not to be around, not to talk to, not to associate with. If you saw them coming, kind of hide, kind of thing. But even on church on Sunday mornings, those people, when they came by church, they would take their hat off when they walked by a church or something. They respected it. But unfortunately, we don't live in that day and time anymore. And so church security and safety has been an issue that's been on everyone's mind here recently. So we've put together a church security and safety guide, and we've worked with some of the other sheriffs around the state with this. I've kind of took their outline and kind of added some stuff to it and formed our own church security procedure right here. We've actually did church security at my church. We've had it in place for several years now. We've changed it, tweaked it, upgraded it, done some different things over the last few years. And I've also, in the last year or so, a couple of years, I've been out helping other churches set up church security. I know Marble Springs helped with them set it up, and some other smaller churches around in our area. So what we're wanting to do now is December the 11th at Little Brasstown at 7 o'clock. That is a week from Monday, I think, or is it Monday?
It's
Monday. Yeah. My time didn't go away from me. It's Monday evening. On December 11th, we'll be doing at 7 p.m. a presentation there at Little Brasstown Church about church security and safety. And I've been getting a lot of responses from this, from people all over the county, even out of state. There are people from Georgia coming up. There's people from Tennessee coming over, going to come over and watch this program. One of the things that's kind of hard to deal with when you talk about church security is you want to keep a balance between being safety-minded and security-minded and protecting your people at church, but you don't want to be so closed off that you don't welcome visitors, and you want visitors to feel welcome at your church, and you want people to be welcome at your church. And so there's a balance there that you have to be in. And so that's what this security and safety presentation is about. This one, people's been calling and asking, what's this about? What are we talking about, kind of thing. So Monday night, what we will be doing is kind of just a general overview of church security and safety. We'll be talking about all kind of different things, and I'll go over some of that here in a minute. But what we want to do is this is just going to be a generalized thing. For individual churches that watches this presentation and says, well, we would like to develop something for our church or upgrade what we have, then we can schedule times that we can go to those church grounds for those individual churches, evaluate what they have, look over their security there at their churches, and give them some recommendations about things they can do at their churches.
Yeah, because that's very individualized.
It is, and one plan doesn't work for everyone, and it kind of, you can be as strict as you want to be with it, and you can be as lax as you want to be with it, and it's up to that individual church as to what they feel like is proper for their church. What one church may be doing and security details that one church is doing, another church may look at that and say, I don't want that. That's too much of what they're doing. Or you may have another church look at that and say, that's not enough. We want more. And so it has to be very specialized for individual churches. And so we're open to that opportunity that once this event is over on the 11th, we may do another one later for people that can't attend. But take these people that wants individual security training for their churches, and we'll go to their grounds and we'll evaluate what they have and give them some ideas and updates there for their churches. So that is upcoming here on December 11th. Some of the things we want to talk about on the 11th for church security is it starts with prevention. And what we hope to accomplish is that by just making some changes within church on the way we do things and the way we address people and talk with people and look for red flags and things of that nature, that we can prevent an active shooter from happening before it happens. We all know that there's times that you can't prevent it, that if someone is dead set that they're going to go to this particular place and they're going to do something, if they've got their mindset of doing that, we can do very little to stop them. But what we are trying to do is look for those things that we can do to engage those people and try to prevent those things from happening. So we in the prevention phase of this, we talk about the security risk assessments, and we talk about policies and procedures and all those kind of things for a security plan. And so we're just trying to get all that together for the prevention side of that. We talk about that security plan. We talk about those developing a security team leader and coordinating training and education for those security plans. And so, like I say, that's the place to start, is thinking about an event before it happens. And thinking about that event, hopefully it'll never happen in the future, but what ifs kind of thing. And so we want to also look at that, do that risk assessment for your church. And we want to be thinking about that and how much at risk is your church. Looking at the grounds, your parking area, your lighting, all those different things, what kind of people you have in your church.
All those side doors.
Yeah, side doors you have in your church, back doors you may have in your church, basements, all kinds of different things to look at. But in addition to that, on your risk assessment, we'll be looking to see what kind of staff you have, how many people you employ, how many volunteers you have at your church, your demographics of your church. Your age group could be a difference there on what kind of security you need. Mm-hmm. If you have a predominantly young church, your security detail may be different than if you have a church that's predominantly seniors. Mm-hmm. And so we'll have to make a difference there. Childcare, whether you have daycares on your property, whether you do Sunday school classes, whether, how many small children do you have? So all those things play into it. And then you also got to look into things in your community. What things do you have around you that may be a security threat? Do you have a pawn shop next door? Do you have, those type of things that may be that someone could be breaking into something else, but your church is close by. So I
laughed because we had a liquor store next door to our church in Columbus.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I say, that's here people don't think about stuff like that, but when you get in places away out of Murphy and out of Cherokee County, you may have those situations. You may have a nightclub next door. You may have something, that may be a threat to your security at your church there. Mm-hmm. And then you got to think about your communications and all those kind of things. How are you going to communicate back and forth? Some churches don't have cell phone coverage. There's places that you have to use landlines to get information in and out. So, two-way radios and things of that nature, all those things will be discussed. And then how do you handle your money and what do you do taking up your offerings and things of that nature. So all of those things are taken into consideration when you're doing your security planning and you're doing your risk assessments and all those kind of things. So hopefully most churches, when they actually do their risk assessments, would be low on that list and they're not at a high risk for something to happen. But then, like I said, you got to put that plan together. So You've got to put your blueprints together, your cameras and alarms, your doors, your windows, lighting, all those type of things that's involved with your church. You have to look at that and say, okay, what kind of plan are we going to put together to try to do some prevention, to try to keep some of this stuff from happening. What is the role of security team? If you put a security team together, what are they expected to do? Are they expected to go hands-on with someone if there's a problem? Are they concealed carry? Are they going to carry weapons in church? What are you comfortable with your church? And so there's all kind of things there as far as that security team about what their role is and what you expect of that team to do. And again, with communications and that team doing drills and preparing for these things and putting greeters at the door. And I mean, there's just a host of things there to talk about on developing that security team. So, it's all things like that we're going to be talking about in the prevention, and we've got a lot more along with that prevention to talk about. But skipping on over a little bit of this is about the incident itself. When you talk about church safety and planning, about what do you do during an event? You're having church on Sunday morning, everything is good, and the preacher's preaching, and all of a sudden somebody comes in the back door with a gun and starts shooting, or someone stands up in the congregation and shoots, or threatens to shoot, has a gun in their hand. How are you going to respond to that? And so we have to think about this on the security team is things like who or how many people or who on the team is designated to not only address the situation, but to call 911 and make sure that you have help on the way. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if you're most churches in the cell phone era with young people in church, there'll be a lot of people calling 911. Hopefully that'll be the situation. But about lockdowns, are you prepared to lock down your sanctuary? Are you prepared to lock down your Sunday school rooms and things like that in an event that you got notification there was someone with a gun on the property? If you got children that's running daycare, have you done lockdown drills? Are you prepared to protect those kids in the event that something like that happened? How about evacuations? Evacuating children, evacuating seniors, evacuating people. Where are you going to go to? Where your reunification sites are going to be, and those kind of things. So there's a lot to do with that, and during the incident. And then your protocols as far as are you going to fight? Are you going to hide? Are you going to run? All of the above. What are you going to do? What's your plan? And so we'll be going over each one of these things and talking about detail on each one of these things is what's appropriate during that time. And some things that's come out from the latest research that's come out from the FBI and different people around the country is what works and what doesn't work during a shooter drill or a shooter plan when it happens. So we want to give you information that will help churches develop a plan that will save lives. And one of the things they did teach us when I started in law enforcement 20 years ago, and they still do it in the in-service every year, but they pretty much let police officers know that if someone is dedicated themselves to shoot you, there's very little you can do about it. And so we can do things to be proactive. We can do things to mitigate that. But for example, on a traffic stop, if you're stopping a car and that person behind the driver's seat is determined they're going to shoot you, there's very few things you can do to prevent them from shooting you, but you can do things to mitigate their chances of hitting you. And so this church security is kind of the same way. There's very few things you can do to stop it from happening. There are some things you can do in the planning phase that may deter it, but if someone is determined they're going to come in and do something bad at your worship service, there's very little you can do to stop it. The best you can do is mitigate it, and the best you can do is try to react to it appropriately to try to get that stopped so you can save lives that way. And then one of the things that we're going to talk about also on this Monday night is about the aftermath and what do you do after the event. What is that security team's role after the event? What is the church's role after the event? And one of the things that people don't think about is when you think about Charleston, South Carolina, you think about Sutherland Springs, Texas, you think about these places where these shootings have happened, about developing a plan to get back to your sanctuary to worship once it's over with. because people don't think about that a lot, but there's a traumatic event that happened there. And so it's a process on trying to get back to your normalcy of worship and getting back to your church. And then, so we have to think about that, about how are you going to get back? How are you going to plan to get back in that worship process? Are you going to just abandon your building and go somewhere else? Are you going to try to get back into that sanctuary? And if you try to get back in that sanctuary, then how are we going to do that? What kind of plan are we going to have for that? So there's all kind of different things as far as reunifications during the shooting, reunifications after shootings, interacting with law enforcement, interacting with responders. Even if there's just a threat, you still have to interact with law enforcement and responders and things that way, even though there may not be a shooting. Mm-hmm. If someone's just on your property with a gun, but no one gets shot, you just report someone with a gun and you lock down, you're still going to have to interact with law enforcement. You're still going to have to interact with those responders that are coming. So we're going to talk about all those kind of things. And then we're going to talk about crisis intervention stress management, how to intervene in those stressful situations to manage people's anxieties and things of that nature. So we'll be talking about all those kind of things in detail. And some more. I didn't go over everything we're going to be talking about, but people's been asking, what are we going to do? And those are the kind of things we're going to talk about. Those are the kind of things we're going to do. But like I say, we have gotten good response from not only churches in our area, but we've got responses out of Tennessee. We've got responses out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. And I've actually had 2 different churches in Georgia ask me to come speak at their church in Georgia. And so we're trying to develop that to where you help not just our citizens here, but anyone around that wants to help. So hopefully that'll be a success and we can get something going with that. One of the things that I encourage people to remember is the fact Sutherland Springs, Texas only had 400 people in the whole town, mm-hmm. Not just in their church, but in the whole town. Right. And so you can't be too small for a tragedy to happen. Mm-hmm. You may say, my church only has 10 members. My church only has 20 people that attend there on Sunday. You can't be too small for a tragedy to happen. So we need to be thinking about this, and that's why we have to individualize this for churches, because obviously a church that has 10 or 12 people is going to plan differently than a church that has 250 people on Sunday morning. So we'll have to take those individual churches and plan for those individually as to what's the appropriate response.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to think about things like this.
Yeah, that's the world we live in nowadays.
Right.
And we can lament all we want about not having the good old days anymore, but the fact remains that you have to adjust.
Right. And one of the things that I remind people of, and it's really saddening and disheartening, but as much as I would like to go back to my childhood days mm-hmm. and relive those days, and because I knew what Cherokee County was like then, and I knew the way people interacted with each other and everything, the chances of that ever happening again are slim to none, and those days are gone. And so when we think about that, and we think about like when I was growing up, going on vacation for going to Gatlinburg or the beach or somewhere for a week or 2 weeks, walking off, leaving your house with the doors unlocked and the windows up in the summertime, those days are not here anymore. Mm-mm. And so, we face that a lot, especially around drug issues and things, about people wanting to know what you're going to do about drugs and do about users and do about this and that. But the best we can do is mitigate what's out there. We cannot turn Cherokee County back into what it was 30 years ago. So we have to just deal with what we have in front of us.
He always surprises me when he butts in like that. I'm like, what is he doing now?
Yeah, the computer all of a sudden just started moving the mouse around and clicking on things.
Yeah, started doing stuff all over.
I thought Donna was going to fall out in her chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I say,
he should know not to do that to an elderly lady me.
You would think.
He's always talking about how old he is. And I'm older.
Right. But like I say, unfortunately, these are things we have to deal with. These are things we have to talk about. And, mm-hmm. and I would love Cherokee County to go back like it was 30 years ago, but it's not going to. And, it really doesn't matter what sheriff you elect, what mayor you elect, what boards, commissioners, town boards you elect. the thought process of turning us back into something we used to be is pretty much a fantasy. So we just have to deal with what's in front of us and adapt to those things that are around us.
Well, you know, maybe it's because I grew up on Army bases and in towns that were adjacent to Army bases.
Right.
But I don't remember ever leaving the house unlocked.
Yeah, here I do. I remember that many times when I was a child growing up, and I can remember also growing up, and many of you listening can remember the same thing. You know, that there was never a feeling of being in danger. There was not a feeling of that. Getting lost at a grocery store, walking down the street in Murphy or whatever by yourself as a child, there was never a feeling that something bad could happen. You know, and I told my children here a while back, I said, I wish that my kids in this generation could remember what it was like and feel what it was like to feel safe, to feel like nothing bad happens. And but our kids in this generation has grown up in an era where they've grown up in an era of terrorism. They grew up in an era of domestic terrorism and foreign terrorism. They grew up in an era of seeing all these things on TV and all these tragic events and things going on. And even though they may not consciously feel that I'm in danger or that kind of thing, it's something they always evaluate their whole life. And so it's normal for them. But for the older generations, it's not normal. It's because we remember what it was like to feel safe, and we remember what it was like to not be scared of bad things happening. And like for now, of course, I see a lot more things than most people in our area do, but you know, it makes me nervous to go out to eat. It makes me nervous to sit in restaurants or go to theaters and things. I'm constantly evaluating people and evaluating situations and thinking tactically, you know, where's the exit doors? Where if something happens, where am I going to take cover at? Where are we going to hide?
I bet you don't ever enjoy.
Very few times do I ever enjoy, because it's always thinking about those things. And it's not just me, but I know law enforcement officers, typically that's the way they think, you know, when they're going out. And so, you know, when you're going out to a restaurant and eating and there's someone there that you know is an off-duty police officer, I can assure you that person has already evaluated the situation, knows the exits, and knows everything that's happening. And you could walk up to them and ask them, what are you going to do if something happens? If somebody was to start shooting, and they can rattle off right then what their plan is.
What exactly they were going to do.
Right. Because they've already thought about it. They've already evaluated it. And unfortunately, that's, like I say, that's the world we live in, where not just law enforcement's doing that, but people in general are doing that and thinking about the bad things that happen out there. But, you know, we can't give up. We got to keep going on, face what's in front of us, and just trust that God will take care of us and it'll be okay.
Yep. Okay, let's not end on such a sad note like that. Okay. Shop with the cop.
Shop with the cop.
Okay.
Put your money in the bucket.
Put your money in the bucket.
Got all kind of Christmas events coming up. If you don't have anywhere else to go, Valley Town is doing several programs here in the next little bit.
We got
a kids play Sunday night.
Okay.
Right. And 16th, Saturday night on the 16th, they're doing our cantata. We'll be doing it again 17th on Sunday morning.
On that morning.
So if you don't have anywhere to go and you don't have any Christmas programs this weekend or next weekend, come and be with us. We'd love to have you.
See, I knew he could cheer it all up.
Because it's Christmas, right?
It's Christmas.
And it's snowing. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Yeah, the weather outside is frightful.
Thank you for having me today, Don. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great day today,
too.
Okay? All right. I'm going to catch up, and then we'll do the weather, brought to you by Carpet Mart.